Joy Behar is no stranger to hot topic discussions thanks to her seat on The View. Recently, she shared a theory of hers involving President Donald Trump, which she also felt involved a distraction from stories concerning Jeffrey Epstein. In fact, these recent claims also involve another figure from the talk show. Joy Behar shared a theory concerning President Donald Trump during a recent podcast appearance. Behar has been part of The View since the start of the series. Since then, she has sat alongside a number of co-hosts and discussed a variety of topics. As a co-host on The View, Behar also often takes part in the podcast series, The View Behind the Table. Brian Tata, who joined the talk show during its 19th season as an executive producer, hosts the podcast, in which the co-hosts of The View dive deep into moments that happen on the show. During a recent appearance on the podcast, Behar shared an interesting theory with listeners. She alleged that President Donald Trump's recent feud with one of her former co-stars could have an ulterior purpose. As previously reported, President Donald Trump has recently gotten into a feud on social media with actress and comedian Rosie O'Donnell, who recently moved to Ireland. After criticizing the president on social media, Trump himself took to the Truth Social platform to question if she should keep her U.S. citizenship. Fans of The View may remember that O'Donnell herself has previously served on the panel on the series. This was from 2006 to 2007 and later from 2014 to 2015. During her time on the show, O'Donnell was known to be critical of Trump, even before his presidency. While speaking with Tata, Behar shared she felt the feud was being used as a distraction. As she mused, he will do anything to keep the news media off of this Epstein story. As Fox News noted, Jeffrey Epstein was a disgraced financier and sex predator who committed suicide while in federal custody in 2019. His death, however, spurred on multiple theories. President Trump spoke about Jeffrey Epstein this past Wednesday. As the publication noted, on Wednesday, Trump spoke out about those who believe the FBI and DOJ were trying to cover up Epstein's death. The president shared, "He's dead. He's gone. And all it is the Republicans. Certain Republicans got duped by the Democrats, and they're following a Democrat playbook and no different than Russia, and all the other hoaxes." For her part, during the podcast, Behar shared her suspicion that some of Trump's supporters were unhappy with his recent comments. As she explained, they feel duped. They feel like, hey, we have this really juicy story, this bad, terrible thing that happened to children. And I think originally, they thought they were going to get some of the Democrats would be on it. Behar also added, now, they just feel betrayed. When asked if she really thought Trump was using the feud with O'Donnell as a distraction, she shared, I think that's always a possibility with him, and on top of that, I think that he's very touchy. In a recent episode of The View Behind the Table, co-host Joy Behar floated a provocative idea. President Donald Trump's escalating social media spat with former View panelist Rosie O'Donnell might be a carefully timed diversion from lingering questions about Jeffrey Epstein's death. The conversation, hosted by executive producer Brian Tata, dove into on-air exchanges from ABC's daytime talk show The View and extended off-camera reflections from the panelists themselves. From The View to podcast commentator Joy Behar has been a mainstay of The View since the series' inception in 1997, joining a rotating roster of outspoken women eager to share candid opinions on politics, culture, and current events. Beyond the televised episodes, Behar and her fellow hosts unpack memorable moments each week on The View Behind the Table. The podcast, helmed by Brian Tata since season 19, gives fans deeper context, behind-the-scenes insights, and occasional off-the-cuff theories from The View's cast. The Trump, O'Donnell back and forth. During the latest podcast installment, Behar revisited the recent back and forth between Trump and Rosie O'Donnell. O'Donnell, herself a View co-host in two separate stints, 2006 to 2007 and 2014 to 2015, has never shied away from criticizing Trump, first as a private citizen and later as president. Last month, following a series of barbs aimed at the White House, Trump used his Truth Social platform to question whether O'Donnell, who now resides in Ireland, should keep her U.S. citizenship. That terse comment ignited renewed media coverage of their feud. Behar's Epstein theory. It was at this juncture that Joy Behar interjected a bold hypothesis. "You know, he will do anything to keep the news media off of this Epstein story," she told Tata. Behar's suggestion was straightforward yet unsettling. By renewing public interest in the high-profile Trump-O'Donnell squabble, Trump could shift headlines away from unresolved questions surrounding the tragic 2019 death of disgraced financier and sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein's 2019 jailhouse suicide stunned the nation and spurred a flurry of conspiracy theories. As one of the most prominent figures accused of facilitating underage sex trafficking, Epstein was arrested in July 2019 and taken into federal custody at New York's Metropolitan Correctional Center. His subsequent apparent suicide raised doubts about whether federal authorities had fully investigated the deeper web of connections among powerful individuals. Since then, some Republicans have raised concerns that the FBI and Justice Department downplayed crucial files or failed to pursue leads that might implicate other high-profile figures. Trump speaks out just last Wednesday. Donald Trump himself addressed these murmurs during a public event. He claimed that swirling allegations of a cover-up amounted to nothing more than partisan theater. "He's dead. He's gone," Trump told reporters. "All it is certain Republicans got duped by the Democrats. They're following a Democrat playbook, no different than Russia, and all the other hoaxes." His remarks were interpreted by some as an attempt to dismiss both the unanswered questions about Epstein's death and the growing dissatisfaction among his own base. Frustrated Trump supporters on the podcast, Behar observed that some Trump loyalists have expressed bafflement and even betrayal over the president's handling of the Epstein topic. "They feel duped," she said. "They thought they had this really juicy story, a terrible thing that happened to children, coming out. Originally, they expected some Democrats to be implicated. Instead," she argued, Trump's quick denials and pointed media feuds have left his supporters feeling hung out to dry. A calculated distraction. Do I really think he's using his feud with Rosie O'Donnell as a distraction? It's always a possibility with him, and on top of that, he's very, very touchy, Behar mused. She noted that Trump has historically seized control of news cycles by lobbing provocative tweets, launching public feuds, and staging sudden appearances, all tactics that redirect public attention.